and I've been a coach now for the Marshall High School for 2 years. I'm a junior at SMSU, and I came from Egan High School up in the Twin Cities. We're going to start this thing off by Brooke, who's going to be giving her drama. And I'm wondering, are all the speakers, are you guys comfortable with giving a little introduction on what your category is about? Is that all right? You guys want to talk just a brief synopsis of what it's about? All right, awesome. So yeah, we'll start off with Brooke and her drama.
Okay, so basically drama, it's a category where you take a 10-minute piece from a long play and then you make it your own. So you're given 3 different scripts in the beginning of the year to choose from, and so this is the piece that I picked. And so that's really all there is to drama. But my name is Teresa Bedell. If they catch him, I won't have to change my name. But if they don't, I picked Claire. Claire Howells. I mean, I don't want it. I don't want to change my name. If they catch him, I won't have to move to Denver. I don't want to move to Denver. I don't like snow. But I don't like it in New York either. I used to like it here, though. I used to. According to Newser in 2015, in 2013, the once child actor who voiced the famous Charlie Brown in Charles Schultz's Peanuts movie was accused of stalking and threatening his ex-girlfriend. Luckily for the victim, Robbins was arrested, leaving the public to falsely believe that the victim had been left with some sense of peace and closure. However, according to many other victims of stalking, they say that even after their stalker has been caught, they still feel like they're being watched. Psychologist Robert T. Mueller states that there is little to explain what motivates a stalker, let alone how to therapeutically treat these offenders, forcing us to ask the questions, who's to blame when it comes to stalking? And what do you do when your stalker isn't caught? Boy Gets Girl by Rebecca Gilman. I don't want to talk about my love life. Let's just say it's been a while. Actually, I had a blind date in high school once. Immediately, this loser asked me if I wanted to go out back to his van to fool around. You know, like, he didn't even want the date. So I think I told him I had to go to the bathroom, and I ended up leaving with some friends. I probably shouldn't tell you that. Now I just ditched some guy, but it had been a while. When about a week ago I had a date with this guy, Tony. It wasn't even a date, it was just a drink, really. Anyways, I remember that Saturday night as I was getting ready. Now, I was looking in the mirror to make sure I looked good for him. I wanted my hair to be perfect, my makeup. I must have changed clothes like at least 3 times. I wanted to look good for him. I wanted to look good for him. And you know, when I think about that now, it makes me ill. It makes me physically ill how much I wanted to look good for him. I think he's stalking me. I mean, what do I know? I don't even know what constitutes stalking legally, but if he's not, then he's coming awfully close. You see, the other night, I'd gotten home, and it was around 9. Then I turned on the light, and immediately the phone rang. It was Tony. He wanted to know where I had been. So I lied, and I told him I had been at work, and he said okay. I now know that he is following me. He called me all night Saturday night until I ended up ripping the phone out of the wall And then I turned off the light because, I had the feeling that somehow, some way he was watching me. And the first message on a machine was after 2 in the morning on Sunday. He told me he saw my light was off. Anyways, when I feel like when I used to go running in the park, every week or two some guy would drive by, say something like, nice ass, or baby, can I jog with you? Things like that. I've been getting it since I was 12, so I know how to ignore it. I used to. You see, every 10th time or so, I still feel it. I feel like everything that I know about myself, that I'm a good New York columnist and that I've read plenty of books and that I haven't had many friends since my parents died, I feel like it all gets wiped out. And I'm not even me anymore. I'm just reduced down to this thing. No, I'm just this thing running down the sidewalk. I'm not me anymore. And that's how I feel now. Reduced. All the time. See, I remember this one time in college, and I was sitting at a bar, and there was this old man drinking next to me, and he was alone, and so I felt bad for him, And he told me about how his wife had left him and how his kids didn't speak to him anymore, and then he said those famous words. He told me how much better it would make him feel to kiss a pretty girl. So I did it. I kissed him, but it's not like I wanted to. He was an old drunk. It's just what I thought I was supposed to do, As a woman, you're just supposed to sit there and listen. There's a message. Teresa, it's me. Too late for you to be out by yourself, so call me back when you get in, and I'll be up. But I have a thought. Maybe you're not getting in. Maybe you're sleeping with some guy right now, which would make me very, 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 very... Stop it, Tony! Stop it! Leave me alone! Leave me alone! What did I do? The police found a letter from him in my apartment, and he said that he wants to put a wire around. There were plenty of other details, but I chose not to hear them. The editor at the Denver Free Press called me the other day. He wants me to write for them, but I told him I'd have to write under a different name, and he said I can have any name I wanted. Why should I wait around until Tony decides to until he decides to hurt me, whatever it is, that he wanted me to feel. Obviously, I feel it. And it's more than just terrifying. No, he's reduced me. So I'm going to buy an apartment in Denver. But here, I'm going to leave the light on in case he's watching. Because whatever happens, I just really don't want him to know that I've left.
So a little bit about informative is you can basically pick any topic you want, but we usually try to pick one that applies to everyone and everyone can gain something from it. So we research our topic and we write our speech, and then we have visuals, and we try to inform everyone. So it's everywhere. It's inevitable. It's natural. It will happen to all of us. The birds do it, the bees do it, and unless you have an immortality elixir in your back pocket, you and I will experience this too. We are all going to die. And as gravely depressing as the fact of dying is, we know that it is inescapable. But it is comforting to know that when our time comes, we have plenty of options on how we want to dispose of our bodies. Take Jay Castano, for example. In a 2013 Washington Post article, Jay describes exactly how he wants his funeral to be. He says he wishes for his unembalmed body to be wrapped in a shroud like a little burrito. They can call it a Chipotle funeral. Jay is one of the many who has strayed from the typical embalming or cremation process and has opted for a green burial. A green burial is just one type of the growing trend called eco-burials, in which one disposes of their remains in an environmentally friendly manner. For Jay, he chose a green burial, but each of us has a choice on how we want to leave this earth. So today, let's first dig into the current traditional practices. Then we'll cultivate what a green burial is, before finally exhuming some rather unconventional alternatives. It really seems that today's traditional practices literally lead us to a dead end. While we may be familiar with the typical embalming or cremation process, we may not be as informed on the environmental concerns that exist. So first, let's dig into embalming. Embalming fluid is a mixture of chemicals that slows the decaying process when placed into a dead body. However, a 2015 Huffington Post article states that this fluid contains formaldehyde, a dangerous carcinogen. And in much older cemeteries, this fluid contains high levels of arsenic, a powerful toxin. And when these fluids leak from the graves, this deadly mix can make its way into our soil and water sources. Serious public health issues will follow, such as increased cancer risks and developmental issues in young children. The next common practice is cremation. Cremation is the process of burning one's remains at extremely high temperatures, then pulverizing the bones until all that is left are the ashes. However, among the massive amounts of carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases emitted by this process, mercury emissions are the most prominent. These are created by burning the dental fillings in the corpse's teeth. These emissions can have serious effects on our health, as they have detrimental effects on our digestive, immune, and nervous systems. And it also is very dangerous to our environment and the growing hole in the ozone layer. It is with these environmental concerns in mind that many have opted for other eco-burial alternatives. If you are one who likes to go all natural, or simply keep things simple, a green burial would fit both of these desires. In his 2007 book, Grave Matters, Mark Harris describes a green burial as a type of eco-burial that returns the remains back to the earth as directly and simply as possible. It thus avoids embalming, metal caskets, and burial vaults. A green burial typically consists of wrapping the body in a fabric or shroud, or using a biodegradable casket. These caskets can be made of bamboo, wicker, paper mache, or even cardboard. Either way, the goal of a green burial is to allow one's body to decompose naturally into the earth without causing any harmful effects on the environment. And so whether we join Jay Castano and be wrapped in a burrito shroud or choose an old refrigerator box for a casket, the earth will be going up daisies. Later in this book, Mark Harris describes the beautiful hills of Westminster, South Carolina, on the Ramsey Creek Reserve. Here, a total of 225 different plant species thrive. The only thing that hikers need to watch their step for are the flat headstones that scatter the preserve. That's right, you guessed it. The Ramsey Creek Preserve is an ecological cemetery, only allowing natural burials. Of the 93 natural cemeteries we have in the U.S., 2 are located right here in Minnesota, in Inver Grove Heights and Brooklyn Center. And if you don't want to go too far from home, you can just walk out your back door. After meeting certain qualifications that vary from state to state, such as living in a rural area or ensuring graves do not contaminate nearby water sources, there is nothing stopping you from being buried in your backyard next to your favorite childhood pet, Scruffy the dog. The decomposing nutrients resting beneath the ground support the living things thriving above. Imagine yourself after death as a dandelion or daisy, sprouting through the foliage, growing from the depths of your grave. And for those of us who'd rather not go up in flames or down in the depths, there are a number of unconventional alternatives available to us. First, we have biocremation, otherwise known as resomation, which is the process of liquefying the body. A 2011 EarthTimes.org article states that this biocremation first happens through a process called alkaline hydrolysis. The first step is to load the body into the resomator, which is similar to a large rectangular vault. Then, computers take the necessary measurements, such as weight or volume. And after that, the resomator is filled with water and potassium hydroxide. And once heat is applied, the liquefaction process has begun, in which all tissues are dissolved. The remaining solution is completely organic and sterile, which can then be returned to the municipal water system. The only thing that remains after this process is complete are the bones, which are then pulverized and returned to the family. Not only is this waste retreatable water, but this biocremation also requires 1/7 of the energy used by cremation and emits no pollutants that could be harmful to our environment. Since this is such a new method, it's currently only legal in 8 U.S. states, including this frigid state we call home, Minnesota. Speaking of frigid, now let's go to the complete opposite side of liquefaction and examine freezing. Promeshing is the process of freeze-drying a corpse. Now that gives a whole new meaning to the word stiff. A 2011 EarthTimes.org article states that this promeshing first involves freezing the body to -18 degrees Celsius, then freeze-drying it by submerging it in liquid nitrogen at almost -200 degrees. After this, the brittle corpse is then subjected to sound waves that vibrate the remains into a fine powder. This powder can then be placed in a biodegradable casket, buried in a shallow grave, and within a few months, it is decomposed into fertile soil. Plants or other trees can be planted above this gravesite, allowing the nutrients below to sustain the life living above. While this method is currently illegal in South Korea, South Africa, and Europe, its Swedish mastermind, Susan Wig Massack, works towards legalization and human trials as her technology is being perfected. And our last method today may appeal to any gardeners out there. Can you imagine getting your dirt or fertilizer from a human composting organization? The Urban Death Project is a nonprofit program based in Seattle, dedicated to making human composting available to the public. On their official website, they state that families first begin by placing their unembalmed loved one on a bed of wood chips and sawdust in the center of a 3-story core building. Once, with a little heat and microbial activity, decomposition is complete within a few weeks, leaving behind a rich compost. Families are then encouraged to take some of this sacred soil back to their homes and families, bringing with it part of their loved one. Katrina Spade, the founder of the Urban Death Project, states that their mission for the future is to create a meaningful, equitable, and ecological way of caring for the deceased. But really, this program is caring for the living. In this environmentally safe process, we are allowing our past loved ones to leave one last green footprint on this earth, and to become something that can sustain new life, even in death. Katrina Spade lovingly adds that this program allows past loved ones to eventually become a lemon tree. Today we have examined the current traditional practices and the environmental concerns that exist. Then we cultivated what a green burial is, before finally exhuming some rather unconventional alternatives. And so whether we join Jay Castano and have a Chipotle funeral wrapped in a burrito shroud, or prefer being liquefied, freeze-dried, or composted, we all have some deadly choices. And with the myriad of eco-burials available to us, there is little room to make any grave mistakes.
said. This is more of a dramatic duo with like a few little jokes.
Yeah.
Sophie, why don't you go play outside?
It's too hot.
You're 8. You should want to play outside no matter what the weather.
I am playing.
Outside playing. It's a beautiful day. Why don't you go play at Marcy's house?
I don't like Marcy anymore. She and Jennifer came up to me and said, you can't supply us on field trips anymore.
And sit next to Amy.
I don't want to sit next to anybody. I don't want to go. I want to stay here with you.
You have to fight through some bad days to earn the best days of your life.
This anonymous quote shows that through the toughest times in our lives, it is important to keep our loved ones close, yet far enough away for them to grow.
A story of a mother and her child hoping to find out that everything will work out in the end. The Unknown Part of the Ocean by Sherry Wilner. Oh, Sophie, you're going on the field trip.
I've been to the aquarium 1,000,000,000 times.
It's not good for you to be here on my sick days.
I don't mind.
I mind. You shouldn't see me like this. See me be sick. After today, I'm going to call Amy's mother and ask her if you can go there from now on.
But
Sophie, please, go play outside.
But what if you need something?
I don't have the energy to need something. Really, Sophie, wouldn't you rather be out there with your friends than in here with your sick mother?
No,
Go play outside.
it's too hot out.
Sophie, I don't have the energy to argue right now.
Do you want something to drink? Juice? Ice chips?
No, and please don't mention food. Please.
I won't.
Thank you.
Could I tell you a story?
Sophie.
It can be any kind you want. Romantic, scary, magical.
That sounds good. Why don't you tell me a magical story?
Excellent. My foreplay.
Please tell me you meant forte.
Yeah,
Thank God.
just give me a minute.
Oh God! Sophie! Please close the door.
Once upon a time, there was a woman who laid in a bed that sailed on the sea. Now this woman loved her bed and the sea. But after a full storm and 7 years, she got very, very lonely. So she called out these words.
Oh, great Atlantis, bring someone here to me and end my lonely days.
And right then, out from under the water jumped a dolphin, who jumped across the bed and dropped a little girl down beside her. Now the woman looked at the little girl and knew it was her child. But the little girl had been kidnapped as a baby and raised by dolphins. But when the great Atlantis heard the mother's plea, he made the dolphins give her back. So the little girl and her mother sailed upon the sea, and the creatures of the deep were their friends, especially the dolphins, who missed the little girl. Everything was wonderful. Until one day, a visitor came who wasn't their friend. It was the
Giant squid
from
the unknown part of the ocean.
And before the little girl could call her friends for help, the giant squid wrapped all its shiny testicles.
Tentacles.
Oh yeah, tentacles around the mother. And as much as the little girl didn't want to touch the slimy squid, she pulled and pulled on all 8 of the squid's arms, hoping that just one of them would budge. So she called out these words.
Oh, great Atlantis, please come and fight this mighty squid.
And the noble Atlantis answered.
I shall send my smartest and bravest creatures to you, and they will save your mother.
Right then, out from under the water leapt a golden starfish, who was very small, but could shine brighter than the brightest star in the sky. So the starfish found the eyes of the squid and shone itself so brightly. But the squid just laughed and said,
What use do I have for eyes? I live in the dark, unknown part of the ocean where none but me can survive.
Then the starfish disappeared back into the sea. The next creature to come was the swordfish with its sharp sword nose, who said,
Fear not. I shall use my sharp sword nose to cut off the squid's arms.
So the swordfish began cutting, and squid arms flew everywhere.
Take that, you slimy squid.
But then the little girl heard the creature's evil laugh. Each time the swordfish cut off one of the squid's arms, another arm grew right back in its place. Exhausted, the swordfish said to the little girl,
My sword is no longer sharp and can cut no more.
then disappeared back into the sea. The third creature to appear was the sea anemone, who said,
Although I am beautiful, I am also very poisonous. I shall squirt my poison into the squid's mouth.
So the sea anemone found the mouth of the squid and began shooting its poison inside. And the little girl heard the squid shout out in pain. But the next time the sea anemone shot out its poison, not only did the squid scream, but the little girl's mother as well.
Stop, anemone! Stop!
But the sea anemone had orders from the great sea god Atlantis, so it kept squirting poison.
Oh, Queen Atlantis, stop the anemone from poisoning my mother!
It's killing her!
Okay, Sophie.
The poison is killing my mother!
No, shh.
But the great sea god Atlantis
Sophie, it's okay. Enough.
could no longer heal her!
Sophie, enough. It's okay. Poison is not killing me. Sophie, poison is not killing me. And it isn't poison. It's medicine.
But you're sick. How does it know to only get rid of the bad stuff inside of you and to leave the good stuff in?
Sophie, shh.
But what if it never stops and you keep throwing up until there's none of you left?
That won't happen.
How do you
I
know?
wouldn't let that happen. Make them stop long before that.
But it's not medicine. They're not giving you
Yes, they
medicine.
are. That's what this is.
But what kind of medicine makes you sick?
Sophie, you're so smart sometimes. You forget you're not 36 years old. I'm sorry. I didn't explain this to you very well. When I said the medicine would make me sick, I meant a temporary sick. You know what temporary means, right? Just for a short time, not forever. For 3 days after the shot, I'm temporarily sick, and then it's all over for a while.
But then you have to go right back to the hospital and get temporarily sick all over again.
Yes, but only until the chemotherapy gets rid of the cancer.
You won't get rid of anything else?
Just the cancer.
How long will that take?
I don't know.
Before I turn 9?
When's that?
November?
I'm teasing. Yes, I think it'll be before you turn 9.
And never come back?
I don't know.
I don't want it to come back. I hope it's only for a short
I
time.
hope so too. You know, you were right. Magical stories are your foreplay.
Forte?
Oh yeah. You'll see the dolphins tomorrow, right? At the aquarium?
Yes?
Will you tell them I said thank you
For what?
for giving you back to me?
So in poetry, you can do this thing called a poetry program, and you take however many poems you'd like, and you with a common theme, and you can weave them together and organize them to make your own new poetry program with a theme, and that's what I did. We've got to talk about the kids and all those Goosebumps books. For example, if your family vacation is to an amusement park called Horrorland and your station wagon explodes in the parking lot upon arrival, maybe shrugging it off, buying an extra large popcorn and heading straight for the deadly doom slide is not your best possible course of action. I am not an extrovert. I am a socially proficient introvert. I interact not because I like to, but because I can. I have learned the art of conversation. 1. We introverts are not always the best at breaking the ice. So in order to get the ball rolling, we often have to resort to tactics that may seem obscure to your average extrovert. This may include subtle clearings of the throat, gentle hand gesturing, and numbers placed carefully into routine conversations where they normally do not belong. According to the Cambridge Dictionaries online, the word introvert is defined as someone who is shy, quiet, and unable to make friends easily. This provides a misconception that introverts are incapable of making friends, let alone being in a healthy relationship. However, on March 19, 2015, the Huffington Post published an article titled 9 Signs You Are in an Introvert-Extrovert Relationship, where they explain that actually being in an introvert-extrovert relationship is possible and even healthy. They say that extroverts report that introverts give them permission to explore their serious introspective sides, while on the other hand, they often feel grateful that their extroverted partners make the atmosphere lighthearted, casual, and that they do so much of the talking. So through the poetry, How to Love Your Introvert by Kevin Young, The Battle Cry of an Introvert by Reet Ogbo, and Anxiety, A Ghost Story by Brenna Twabi. A poetry program because my introvertedness does not make me any less capable of love. If you move into a new house and there's a bunch of small children everywhere already living in your bedroom that your parents cannot see, maybe don't just go grab a juice box and go play in the cemetery that's in your backyard. I am an introvert, and that's why, no matter how sweetly I smile or how deeply I seem to listen, nothing pleases me more than curling up in my bed with my books and thoughts for company. 2. You may be asking yourself, how can I be sure I'm speaking to an actual introvert and not someone simply masquerading as one? Well, here are a few telltale signs. If the person wraps their arms around your shoulder as they're introducing themselves to you for the first time, probably not an introvert. I am not an extrovert. Nothing wears me out more than people. I have learned to listen but not absorb, to understand without accepting, and to be present but not involved. If the person uses the words unwind and nightclub in the same sentence, probably not an introvert. If you steal a weird camera from your creepy neighbor's basement and every picture you take shows bad things happening like decapitation and tofurkey, and then all the bad things from the pictures start happening, stop taking pictures. If the person attempts to engage in any conversation whatsoever about the weather and they're not from Minnesota, probably not an introvert. I am not an extrovert. Crowds bore me, people tire me. I do not wish to know who did what to whom on which day with which witness. Life is complicated enough without needing to puzzle out the details of everyone else's drama. 3. To set the record straight, I do not hate people, but I do get pretty tired of them sometimes. Just for a second, pretend that my desire to socialize could be equated by my desire to exercise. This means that a quick jog around the block would be like catching a cup of coffee with a friend. Bar hopping with buddies would be like finishing a 6-minute mile. And my senior prom was a little bit like running the Ironman in the middle of August. To love me is to love a haunted house. It's fun to visit once a year, but no one wants to live there. I am an introvert, and so despite how well I put words together, I would much rather write and free myself to expression without the burden of interaction. Now you see I don't hate talking to people any more than you hate a little bit of exercise, but you wouldn't challenge an Olympian to a marathon after they just finished a race. I am an introvert, the chronicler of your stories. Watching from the sidelines, I'd rather not go up on the stage. I'll watch and talk and listen, and then eagerly rush home to recount all I have seen and heard to my patiently waiting computer. 4. There may be times when you will be uncomfortable in my silence. But understand, just because I do not wear my heart on my sleeve
for everyone to see does not mean that it beats any softer than yours. I am an introvert, and so I apologize if I seem rude or unconcerned or distant. It's just life is so much sweeter standing over here where I am. Do not confuse the stillness of my lips with the rhythm of apathy. Do not confuse words rattling off at 80 beats per minute with the music of an actual conversation. Just because I cannot commit the act of small talk does not mean that I don't have huge things to say. Just because I cannot commit the act of small talk does not mean that I've ever stopped wanting to love so hard. I am your friend. I promise I am. I love you. I promise I do. But allow me to love you from way over here, where I can be your friend without talking to you. Because 5. We introverts are not always the best at breaking the ice. So in order to get the ball rolling, we often have to resort to tactics that may seem obscure to your average extrovert. This may include subtle clearings of the throats, gentle hand gesturing, and writing a whole entire poem just to say. 6. I love you more than quiet trips to the library. I love you more than canceling Friday night plans. How reckless the way that I love. Like the first chapter of a ghost story. Like the gentlest hand reaching out of a grave. Baby, I love you more than Tumblr. But when the world is shouting far too loudly for us to hear our own voices, and when these words cling far too tightly to our own chests, I just want you to know, I love you.
Okay, storytelling is where we are given 15 stories, and at a speech competition we get a half hour to prepare a story that we draw from 3 stories. And yeah. In this strange story, we will see how the wit of one man will save him, while the unintelligence of another will be his downfall. The story of Compriano, an Italian folktale taken from favorite folktales from around the world. Edited by Jane Yold. In a faraway land, much like here, there lived a man named Compriano. Now Compriano was a hard-working man, yet his crop this year was not very plentiful. So he was out in his field on this fine day, talking to his donkey, trying to figure out who he should scam, when he decided that his neighbor the yokel would be the best. But as he was scanning around trying to figure out how to scam him, he let his eyes set on his donkey. Now this is excellent. You see this gold coin? I will take this gold coin and shove it up your hee-haw, and then when we meet up with the yokel, it will come out and he will want to buy you. So Compriano did just that. And as they met up in the road with the yokel, they were walking and talking when suddenly the yokel stopped and started shouting in astonishment.
Oh my! Compriano? Donkey? Gold?
Hee-haw!
Me in need!
Gil, I don't know. This is my favorite donkey and quite frankly gives me all my money. But I suppose I could sell it to you for, say, 300 shillings?
500!
So Compriano sold the gold-pooping donkey to the yokel for 500 shillings, and they both went their separate ways. Now as Compriano got to his house, he told his wife of what had happened and how he had gotten all the money. Oh, Tony, that's just great, but you know, you just want to come back and he's just gonna want to kill you. Oh, darling, don't you think I thought this through? You see, when he comes back, I will go and check the donkey. Now, while we are out there, you make a pot of beans, and right before we come in, put it up in the cupboard. All right? Suddenly, they heard a knocking at the door. So Campiano went to answer it. She goes, "Well, hello there."
Campiano, donkey, no gold.
"Well, is that right? Let me come out and check it." "Well, what have you been feeding my donkey?"
Hey.
"Well, of course. Now he's voking, and he will never vote again. But you know what? I won't make you pay me. I will take the donkey back for free, and let's say you can come in and have supper with us." So they headed into the house, and Campiano called out to his wife, saying, "Darling, do you have supper ready?" "Oh, no." "Darling, how many times have I told you to have supper ready when I come back in?" "Oh, I'm sorry, I was just reading this funny." "Oh, I don't want to hear your excuses. Just take the magic pan out of the cupboard. You should have at least put food in that." "Oh, of course I did, darling. But you must be very careful. It's very hot."
Hot? Cupboard.
"Why, yes. This is a magic pan. See, all I have to do is put the food inside, and then I can leave it sit, so then when I come in from working outside, it will be all ready for us to eat."
Me need.
"Well, I don't know. This is indeed my favorite pan. But I suppose I could sell it to you for, say, 500 shillings.
700.
So they sold the magic cooking pan to the yokel for 500 shillings, and he went home to try it out himself. "Oh, darling, why are we doing this? He's just going to be even more mad than before." "Darling, don't worry, I got this." With that, he headed down into his cellar, coming back up with the gallbladder of a cow and handing it to his wife. "Why did you give me this?" "Put it in your bra." "In my bra?" "Yeah, just do it." "Okay, but why am I doing this?" "You see, I will throw a knife at you, and it will hit you there. This way you will not die, but you shall pretend to die, all right?" "Okay." Just then they heard another knocking at the door. So Campiano went to go answer it. She goes, "Well, hello there."
Campiano, pan, no work.
"What? Let me see this. This is not the magic pan. Darling, did you switch the magic pan?" "No, darling. That is my favorite pan. Why would I give him it?" "Oh, darling, you know how many times I have told you not to mess with my business. You make me so mad sometimes. Sometimes I just gotta..." With that, he had picked up his knife, throwing it at his wife, hitting her right in the gallbladder. And it exploded, letting blood everywhere as the woman pretended to die. "Oh, no, I'm... Now, the yokel just looked on with astonishment.
You kill wife.
"Why, yes, this happens quite often, actually. She makes me mad, oh, so very often. But you know what? I can just revive her with this here's job. All I have to do is blow it into her mouth, and she will come back to life." "Darling, did you kill me again?" "Why, yes, I did."
Me need.
"Well, I don't know. I don't know how my wife will live without it. Yeah, I really don't." "'Cause, you see, I have at least killed her like 3 times this week. Who knows how many more I could kill her."
Me need.
All right. But save only 700 shillings.
900.
So they sold the magic straw to the yokel for 900 shillings, and he headed home to try it himself. Now as he got home, he tried it on his wife, and let's just say the yokel was locked up in jail for a long time. And as for Confiano and his wife, they lived happily and rich for the rest of their days. As we have seen in this story, our intelligence may save us sometime, while our unintelligence may be our downfall.
So duo's already been explained, so same thing. Except this one's, more of a upbeat, funny one, more than a serious duo.
So, one day, a hungry fox was preparing to hunt for his dinner. He was startled by a knock at the door. Hey, Rabbit, are you home?
Rabbit! If there were any rabbits in here, I'd have eaten them for breakfast.
Oh no!
Oh yes, you've come to the right place. This must be my lucky day. How often does dinner come knocking at the door?
Have you ever been in a situation where you feel like everything is going your way?
Like when you're sitting at home, looking at your Powerball ticket, and you watch as they call your winning numbers on the screen.
But you realize it's a broadcast from 2 months ago?
Or when you've just been announced Miss Universe.
But it turns out Steve Harvey accidentally called the wrong name.
It happens to the best of us.
My lucky day.
By Kiko Kaza.
Let me go.
Sorry, pal. This isn't just any dinner. It's a pig roast. My favorite. Now get into this roasting pan.
All right, I will. But just one thing.
What?
Well, you see, I'm a pig. I'm filthy. Shouldn't you wash me first? Just a thought, Mr. Fox.
He is filthy.
So, the fox got busy. He collected twigs. He made a fire. And he carried in the water. And finally, he gave the piglet a nice bath. You're a terrific scrubber.
There. Now you're the cleanest piglet in the county. So get into the oven.
All right. I will. But
But what?
Well, Well, you see, I'm a small little piglet. Shouldn't you fatten me up to get more meat on me? Just a thought, Mr. Fox.
He is a bit on the small side.
So, the fox got busy. He picked tomatoes. He made spaghetti. And baked cookies, my favorite. And finally, he gave the piglet a nice dinner. You're a terrific cook.
There! Now you're the fattest piglet in the county. You stay still now.
All right, I will. But,
But, what?
well, you see, I'm a hard-working piglet. Shouldn't you massage me first to make me a more tender roast? Just a thought, Mr. Fox.
I do prefer tender meat.
So, the fox got busy. He pushed. Right in the bacon. So, he pulled. So, he squeezed. So, he pounded the piglet from head to toe. You give a terrific massage, but I've been working awfully hard lately. Could you push a little to the right? Yes? Now a little to the left? Mr. Fox? Are you there? Mr. Fox? Mr. Fox? Poor Mr. Fox. He's had a busy day. So, then, the cleanest, the fattest, and the softest piglet in the county gathered up the rest of his cookies and headed for home. What a day. What a bath. What a dinner. This must be my lucky day. So, when the piglet got home, he relaxed before a nice, warm fire. Let's see. Coyote?
Oh!
Check. Fox? Check. Wolf and bear? Who shall I visit next?
Okay, so this next one is going to be an oratory, and it's similar to info in that we pick our topics and research and write them, but it is about a persuasive topic. So I'm going to try to persuade you into thinking a new way about something in our society or world that I think should change. So, when I was little, I used to think that my crayons had magical powers. That's right. I thought that my Crayola 64-pack had some kind of mystical healing ability. Barbie missing an arm? My blue crayon will fix that. Teddy losing stuffing? My yellow crayon will do the trick. And so with the wave of my waxy wands, that's what I did. But eventually, I learned that my Crayola clinic didn't always heal everyone. When my grandpa got sick, my magical, colorful wands failed him. My grandpa had cancer, and I quickly learned that no Crayola crayon can cure that. In fact, I'm willing to bet that everyone in this room has been touched by cancer. A mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, siblings, maybe it's even you. And if you are one of the blessed few who has not bore witness to cancer, then surely you've seen the endless news broadcasts. Cancer rates higher than ever. New cancer causers you'll want to hear. Cancer treatment prices skyrocket. The American Cancer Society reported in 2014 that a quarter of all Americans will perish from this disease. And since 2001, it has been the leading cause of death in Americans under the age of 85. It is the prevalence of this relentless disease that has turned the fight against cancer into a multi-billion-dollar business and an opportunity to exploit. It has become the cancer industry. And this is my concern. Today's cancer industry is putting profits before patients. So today, let's reveal the multi-billion-dollar business that is the cancer industry. Then we'll examine its detrimental effects, before finally returning to my childhood to find that it isn't magic wands that will cure cancer. It's us. Throughout America's colorful history, we have proven to be good at a lot of things. You can certainly say that we've trumped the competition. We are productive, innovative, and creative. I mean, how else would we have invented this Snuggie? But one thing we're not good at is cancer. John P. Thomas, a scientist at the University of North Carolina, states in a 2015 article that in the early 1900s, 1 out of every 20 people got cancer. By the 1940s, 1 in 16. By the 1970s, 1 in 10. And today, 1 in every 3 people will develop cancer in their lifetime. You'd think that our country would be on the fast track to finding a cure. Of course, it's not as if we don't try to fight it. We do. Raise your hand if you've ever bought those Yoplait yogurts with the cute pink labels. Or maybe you've seen those fun pink ribbon stamps. Or maybe you've even smelled the latest pink ribbon perfume called Promise Me. But either way, the saying real men wear pink couldn't be more true during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We've all seen our favorite NFL players sprint for the touchdown in their pretty pink shoes. But surprisingly, in 2014, the American Cancer Society stated that none of the NFL's breast cancer awareness profits actually went towards researching a cure. It is acts like these of taking advantage of breast cancer awareness that is called pinkwashing. And while pinkwashing may have been born of good intentions, the reality is that it has become the act of using cancer to guilt consumers into buying a product. Now, while my magic wands came in a variety of Crayola colors, it is easy to see how the motivation to find a cure is being muddied with money. With billions of dollars swirling around the cancer industry, it is clear that we have put too much emphasis on money in this industry. Last year, $125 billion was spent on cancer treatments, and the National Institute of Health expects that number to raise to $158 billion by 2020. And most of this money goes to the drug companies. Big Pfizer, the world's largest pharmaceutical company, received $2.5 billion in sales of cancer drugs last year, and they aim to reach $11 billion by 2018. And of course, these astronomical profits are only achieved with astronomical prices. Big Pharma, or the pharmaceutical companies, practically have an unregulated monopoly over the industry, thus allowing them to price their medicines at whatever they desire. And in turn, Dr. S. Lock-and-Jane, author of the 2013 book, Malignant, states that society has twisted one of its most staunchest failures into an economic triumph. And as I said before, the cancer industry is putting way too much emphasis on the money instead of the patients. More emphasis on profits is costing the patients lives and money. In 2014, it really seems that there has been more emphasis on economic incentive to not find a cure. Take Dr. Fareed Fada, a Michigan oncologist who in 2013 was charged with running a $35 million fraud scheme by purposely misdiagnosing healthy individuals with cancer. He stated in court that he knew the treatments he prescribed were medically unnecessary. It was unnecessary to drain these patients' bank accounts. It was unnecessary to poison their perfectly healthy bodies. It was unnecessary to put their families in that unimaginable situation. While the cancer industry prospers off of cancer, the patients themselves wither, not only physically, but financially as well. Researchers at Fred Hutchinson's Cancer Research Center found that someone's likelihood of bankruptcy doubles with a cancer diagnosis. Dr. Yusuf Zafar and colleagues at Duke University coined the term financial toxicity, which is now one of the chief side effects of cancer, right alongside hair loss and nausea. And unfortunately, a serious case of financial toxicity was caught by 57-year-old Janet Vettersky. She was diagnosed with lymphoma, and then 2 years later, pancreatic cancer. By this time, she found herself drowning in $150,000 in medical debt. When she and her disabled husband filed for bankruptcy, she stated, You feel like a personal failure. I tried to do everything right. Though it's more likely that Janet did do everything right, and the exploitive cancer industry did everything wrong. It is this culture of exploitation in the cancer industry that not only hurts the most vulnerable of victims, but also makes a cure less likely. Now, after hearing all of this, the 5-year-old inside you may be tempting you to whip out your magic cradle wands and solve this disease once and for all. But just hold on. There is still plenty for us to do that doesn't require magical powers. If all of our cancer fighters all banded together and shared information, surely a cure would be in our near future. Unfortunately, there is no place for this massive info swapping to take place. Yes, surprisingly, in this age of technology, there is no database for this disease. Before her death to breast cancer, Lori Beckland, an LA Times writer, calls for a place to input patient histories, results, patterns, and anomalies that can better equip the next doctor with life-saving information. And of course, it's not only our doctor's responsibility. It is all of us who have been touched by cancer. We need to ask for and expect this database to be implemented. Next, we need to put our money where it counts. We can be careful with our charitable giving if we think before we pink. By using sources like charitynavigator.org, we can easily know to avoid the Cancer Survivors Fund, which received a 0 out of 4-star rating, or to support the Children's Cancer Association, which received a 4-star rating. 80% of this charity's profits actually goes towards the services it offers, improving children's lives. And our last solution today, quite possibly, is the most important. We need to stop seeing cancer as an unbeatable, unstoppable force. We need to change our attitude from passive to proactive. We need less awareness and more prevention. If we work together, we can end the cancer industry's reign over our pocketbook. We can find a cure. We can save millions of lives. Nothing is out of reach. And so as you can see, there is no need for our magic wands today. We can keep them tucked away in the box and save them for another time, because the cancer industry is something we all can beat. Though it was hard for me to admit I don't actually have magical healing powers, it was even harder for me to accept my helplessness against cancer. Though we can band together to win the war against cancer, we can save lives, we can change the world. In the words of famous author J.K. Rowling, we do not need magic to transform our world. We carry all the power we need inside ourselves already.
Good evening, and welcome to Speech Spotlight 2016. Tonight we welcome parents, friends, relatives, teachers, school administrators, and community members to this special showcase event of the Tiger Speech Team. My name is Andrea Karen, and I am a senior captain on our team in the category of storytelling and co-MC for tonight's event.
And my name is Maria Estrada, and I'm also a senior on the team and in poetry. Tonight's show promises to be an evening of an enlightening and entertaining speeches that will surely ignite thought, stir emotions, and tickle your funny bone. 5 speeches from 5 different categories will be showcased this evening.
We don't have time to showcase all 60 speakers on our team, or all 13 categories, but this will give you a sample of some of the tremendous talent that is a part of this year's team.
To help make this a great event, please turn off all cell phones.
Right now.
Please. Thank you. Now let's start Speech Spotlight Show 2. We will begin with a fun and energetic sister duo, seniors Bethany Zoig and freshman Jenna Zoig.
Bethany and Jenna say they love their duo because of the spoofy nature of their speech and being able to fight with each other and not get in trouble for it. Ladies and gentlemen, Bethany Zoig and Jenna Zoig.
What? Why did you shiver, Horatio?
Just a little cold, sir.
You would not be so cold if you had learned inner sun.
I'm sorry, sir, but you know my kung fu's not as good as yours. Whoop, whoop.
I know. What? But is it just the cold that bothers you? Horatio was cold, but he was also scared. Scared of the dark, scared of the ghosts, scared of pretty much everything. He didn't want Hamlet to know that he was scared.
That might make him seem cowardly.
Which he was.
Actually, sir, I'm a little frightened of seeing that spirit again.
Don't be frightened, Horatio. You are with me. And besides, even if there were a spirit, I would teach him a thing or two about coming where he's not wanted. Whoop, whoop, whoop. The story of Kung Fu Hamlet begins in England in the 1600s.
Aliens had landed in the middle of a theater wherein Hamlet was being performed.
Excuse me, what?
William Shakespeare immediately engaged the aliens in brave and unequal combat.
Put that away.
So that the remainder of his tragedy might be enjoyed by the audience. Shakespeare was a mighty warrior, and he vanquished the aliens with his prose stylings and long fist technique.
That is not historically
Then,
accurate.
he got the idea to transform Hamlet into a comedy.
Excuse
and
me?
fill it with lots of martial arts action.
Okay, that never happened. This would actually happen.
Kung Fu Hamlet by Gabriel Lamas.
Oh, it's almost time for the spirit to appear. Well then, let him come. I've been itching for someone to fight ever since my uncle, that filthy swine, became king. I should crown the new king's head with my lion goose face.
The spirit returns.
What's this?
Hamlet didn't believe in ghosts. He didn't believe in magic. And he especially didn't believe in being a lazy coward in the face of anything. Especially other things in which he also didn't believe.
Yet now he beheld the shadowy figure of a man draped in smoky robes with a faded metal crown upon his head. If you were a kung fu master like Hamlet, you would know that the only appropriate reaction to meeting a spirit is to kick the non-living crap out of it.
Well, I suppose you're already dead. So maybe you want me to kill you again. Mark me.
I will.
I am doomed to walk the night, and for the day confined to fast and fires, to the foul crimes done in my...
You talk too much, old man. You'll get tired, and I already feel bad beating up a stupid old fool like you.
I see you are stupid and slow. I'm a ghost, and I don't need to breathe, stupid.
Hamlet hated being called stupid. He hated it almost as much as he hated olives.
Olives were the things he hated most.
Yeah! Well, you still better fight. Instead of talking so much.
If you ever loved your father,
what's this?
Revenge is most foul and unnatural murder.
Murder? No. My father was bit by a serpent in the gardens.
That's not true. My murderer now wears my crown.
Your crown? Who made you a king? Listen here, spirit. You better start making sense.
I am thy father's spirit.
You can't fool me, spirit. My father was a fighter of legendary reputation. His iron quick foot won many lands from Norway. But your kung fu is very sloppy.
Well, if I'm slower, it's only because I'm dead. But I'll show you yet who I was. Skadoosh.
Yeah! What's this? Stinging serpent's dance of death. That's Elsinore's secret kung fu. My father, my master.
Stand up and listen up. I was murdered by my brother.
My uncle.
That's right. He broke the sacred law of Elsinore and used stinging serpent's dance of death on me. His own flesh and blood.
No.
It's true. But hey, the sun's coming up. Revenge my death. Got it? Remember me. Oh, my lord. There you are.
Yes. Now listen up, Horatio. You already heard everything the spirit of my father said to me, right?
Yeah, I heard everything.
Well, I've got a plan to find out if it was all really true. We'll invite my uncle to a show tonight, a dance. I'll teach you a special dance move that will be just like what my uncle did to kill my father. I prithee that when thou seest that act afoot, even with the very comment of thy soul, observe my uncle. If there's a cult of guilt do not itself uncannel in one dance, it is a damned ghost that we have seen.
I'm sorry, sir, but I didn't catch a word of what you just said.
Weren't you listening? I said, when you perform that part of the dance, then the king's guilt will show in his ugly face, and you must look for it as well. Understand now?
Gee, sir, that's a great plan. You know, you're smart, and you've got great kung fu.
I know. Now, can you dance?
I can dance a little.
Good. So here's what I need you to do. Heep, skadoosh. Yeah. Hi. Yeah. What was that? Are you even a man? You have imitated humanity so abominably. You see, Horatio,
Sorry, sir.
This plan can't fail.
Sure can't, sir.
Tonight, after the dance shows my uncle for what he is, a traitor and a snake, I shall take my revenge.
Hamlet was sure that this would work.
He was sure the king's guilt would show, and he could take his revenge.
He was sure that everyone would live happily ever after.
Oh, except for his uncle.
Oh. Yeah, he'd be dead.
The whole Danish court had turned up for the big show. Mainly because word went out that Hamlet was going to beat up anybody who didn't show up. The king entered the theater, accompanied by the royal orchestra.
Wonderful of you to invite me tonight, Hamlet.
It was nothing. And everyone likes a good show, don't they?
Yes, they do. You know, I competed in a dance competition in my youth.
Did you win?
Well, no, but...
Good, because then we don't have to listen to you tell the story. Come on, let's get the show started. Get to the important part.
Skadoosh.
Yeah! Horatio struck stinging serpent's dance of death. And this time, it actually wasn't horrible. The king recognized it immediately and stood up in shock.
That's Elsinore's secret kung fu. Why would you teach him our family's secret?
You see that, Horatio? He's guilty for sure. Now, we just have to kill him.
The king snuck up behind Hamlet and performed stinging serpent's dance of death.
Seriously? Again?
Hamlet falls to the ground in pain. It's no good fighting now I've stung you. So you may as well give up and die if you're smart.
You killed my father. Now I will make you pay.
How? You've got 1 minute left before you die, and that minute will be spent in total agony. I beat you, and you should prepare yourself for death.
Uncle, why don't you take your own advice and prepare yourself for death? You jerk!
Huh?
And with a miserable groan, with a miserable groan, the king died.
Oh, I am killed. Hamlet succumbed to his injuries and fell to the ground in pain.
Ah! True, Horatio. Remember what you have seen here, and carry on Elsinore's kung fu.
I will.
Remember.
Thank you, ladies. Our next speaker is senior Ashley Schatzko performing her great speeches. Last year, Ashley was a state medalist in this category.
Ashley enjoys being a part of the speech team because no matter how bad you do, those people are required to listen to you for a full 10 minutes. I will forever be, or she will be forever grateful for that speech taught her how to artfully express herself both vocally and on paper, and how to take criticism like a champ. Ladies and gentlemen, Ashley Schatzko.
When I was asked to speak today, the suggestion was made that I talk about the roots, or the beginnings of the Social Security. So I have thought about the roots, and I suppose that the idea that we ought to have a systematic method for taking care of the material needs of the aged really springs from that deep well of charitableness which resides within the American people. One thing I know is that Social Security is so firmly embedded in the American psychology today that no political party or group could possibly destroy this act and still maintain our democratic system of government. On October 23, 1962, an 82-year-old Frances Perkins went to the Social Security headquarters in Baltimore, Maryland, where she delivered a riveting, lengthy speech on how the Social Security Act of 1935 came into being. The text can be found on the administration's website. Perkins delivered an amazing speech on Social Security and led an amazing life as a political activist, focusing her efforts on labor and social issues. She served under FDR as the Secretary of Labor and then became known as a very powerful female in government. But what she is not as well known for was her work on the original Social Security Act, one of the bedrock social programs of the United States today. This speech is worthy of our examination because it takes a complex social program and relates its origins in personal, human terms. Rhetorician Walter Fisher has argued that human communication is largely a storytelling process, and that one should examine the effectiveness of our communication through a narrative lens. In this endeavor, Perkins absolutely delivers. Through her folksy, personal storytelling style, she delivers a truly memorable speech. This narrative quality has also been applauded by Denise Graveman, a rhetorical strategist and TED Talk coach in Washington, D.C., who asserts that Perkins' speech in particular was effective because it did three things. First, it gained the attention of her audience through the use of conversations. Then it brought the past to life with specific details, before finally engaging the audience with humor. So first, let's look at how Perkins gained the attention of her audience through her use of conversations. By including short strings of dialogue throughout her speech, Perkins was able to give her audience a better mental image of the situation, as well as allowing for another opinion to enter into the story, adding drama and significance. In this next passage, she recreates a pivotal conversation she had with President Roosevelt when they first discussed social insurance for the elderly. He looked at me, a little startled, and he said, "Well, there are constitutional problems, aren't there?" "Yes, very severe constitutional problems," I said. "But what have we been elected for except to solve the constitutional problems? Many other problems have been solved by the people of the United States, and there is no reason why this one shouldn't be." He looked on for a while, and then nodded wisely. "All right," he said. "I will authorize you to try." Here, Perkins gives her audience a great mental image of how she was feeling at the time, as well as how FDR felt in the situation. This narrative quality allows her to introduce a major player into the story, as well as recreate a conversation that otherwise would be lost to the turnings of time. It also gives her story structure with characters and a real plot, a concept that Fisher refers to as narrative coherence. So now that we can see how she used conversations to build interest in her speech and provide coherence to her story, let's look at how she used details to bring the past to life. Perkins included details in her speech that allowed her audience to become a part of this significant history. These details, peppered throughout this text, would never have made it into the ordinary historical records. In this next passage, she relates how the roots of Social Security are firmly embedded in the hardships of the Great Depression. Social Security, I believe, came about largely because of the crisis of the times. Starvation, hunger, wandering boys, furniture and bedding out on the sidewalk, and the old lady weeping over it. Children sobbing, and the father out looking for a truck to move his belongings to some relative's already overcrowded tenement, or just sitting there on the side of the road, bewilderedly, waiting for a charity officer to come and move him. Notice how Perkins uses emotional examples, underscoring the human toll of the Great Depression. She then goes deeper into detail on a very specific group of people, the wandering boys that contributed to the poverty and scarcity of work. Consider yourself in the position of a boy who's in a home where the breadwinner is unemployed, to feel himself not unwanted, but another mouth to feed. One boy said to me, "I felt awful. I was eating so much, and the kids, the little children, were hungry. So I went out to find a job. I had to leave town." This is what the boys did. Not just a few of them, but thousands of them. They would wander around the country and were a problem to charity and relief organizations. They would stow away underneath the bumpers of rail cars. Some of them learned to be panhandlers, while others learned to steal. Here, Perkins does a remarkable job of using details to relate the current state of the country at the time. She then uses humor to lighten up the seriousness of this topic. Despite the fact that she was discussing far-reaching legislation and big political battles in this speech, she uses humor to lighten up the mood of the room and laughter. In this next passage, she discusses her troubles in securing funding for the Social Security Administration with Supreme Court Justice Harlan Stone. "You see, Mr. Justice, we are having a hard time deciding what will be a wise method of establishing this act. As you know, we are guided by this, that, and the other case." He looked around the room to see if anyone was listening, and then he put his hand up, confidentially, and he said, "The taxing power, my dear. You can do anything with the taxing power." I didn't question him any further. I went back to my committee and never told them where I got my wonderful information. As far as they knew, I'd gone off into the wilderness and had a vision. She kept her audience on their toes with her witty remarks and sarcasm that kept them engaged in the story and invested in the history of the time. Bob O'Brien, former director of the White House speechwriting department, has written that humor has been employed by political leaders and business executives because it works. It lightens up heavy material and makes information more memorable. As Perkins drew to the close of her speech, she relates how the Social Security Act spent weeks in committee before finally being presented to Congress. In this next passage, notice how she comments casually on the key characters involved, as well as humorously on their lack of knowledge about the bill. But of course, you knew the two committee chairmen. Senator Pat Harrison of Mississippi was a wonderful orator. He didn't know the first thing about the bill. And Senator Bob Doughton of North Carolina knew even less about it because he was deaf and couldn't hear what was being said to him about it. But there wasn't much debate in the House anyway. And so it finally went through in a blaze of glory. Harrison was congratulated and Doughton was congratulated, and they both beamed. And I gave a party. Certainly, Perkins' use of conversations, details, and humor all combined to make this an entertaining and educational narrative from a woman who made it her business to bring about social insurance for the elderly. Braveland describes it as astonishing speech, and certainly worth listening to. The speech also had an impact It influenced the Social Security Administration to write a biography and a collection of quotes on Perkins' life, aptly entitled Frances Perkins, that is now prominently displayed on their website. Certainly, Perkins' speech on this important law can help us all to appreciate the work she did on our behalf. Jamie Hopkins, a writer for Forbes, wrote in 2014 that Social Security is fundamental to the social compact of the United States, that we will take care of our sick, our poor, and our elderly. Perkins left the Social Security Administration with these final words of encouragement. And then began the task which you have now undertaken. That is, the administration of this act. Thousands of problems have arisen in this administration which had not been foreseen by the people who did the planning and the legal drafting. And of course, the act had to be amended. And it has been amended, and amended, and amended, and amended, until finally it has become a large and important project, for which, by the way, I think the people of the United States are deeply grateful.
Thank you, Ashley. Our next speaker will be Senior Captain Marissa Condon and humorist.
Marissa's best speech memory was flying out to Boston last year, sightseeing, and competing against very impressive speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, Marissa Condon.
This sucks. I'm dizzy. My straps hurt. I'm going to catch a cold. Quit whining, Phyllis. You hey moron! Come and get me! Oh, please be quiet, Dick, or the red caps will come and get you. Let them try it. Do you know what I weigh? I'm a Samsonite hard run. Ooh. It stopped. The belt, the thing, it's not moving. It's... Shh. The crew was coming. Look inanimate. What? No! Shh. No! Looks like we got a couple of unclaimed bags. Look 'em. Where are we, Dick? Lock up. The big house. Not unclaimed baggage. Oh, God! No! Dick! In the arms of... Thousands of bags go each year in airplanes. Fly away from here. You can make a difference. From this dark, cold hotel room and the endlessness that you fear. Call 1-800-SAD-BAGS and find out how you can make a difference in the lives of lost luggage everywhere. Emotional Baggage by Nina Schenkel. Dick, who are those other bags? Looks like a rough trade. Maybe lifters. Hey, big boy. What's in the bulge? Is that a travel umbrella, or are you just happy to see me? Like a dust cowhide. Oh my God. He's dead. Good thing I swing both ways. Oh God! Who are you? Jill, babe. The name's Rolla. What are you, carry-on? Yes, I'm Phyllis the carry-on. I was made to be carried. I would have been carried if she hadn't bought so much duty-free Tia Maria. I was flying first class. What did you win for? Excuse me? Missing tag, lost connection. You holding? I don't. You just off the plane from Cancun, right? A little talcum powder packed into a toilet kit. A few wonky vitamin C's. Some Smilla stuffed diapers. I flew down for a realtors convention. Did the beagle sniff you? I hate it when the beagle sniffs you. Leave her alone, buddy, or I'll pop you one right in the buckle. Ah, big man, I'm with. First time in the joint? Yeah. We got some hard cases here. Watch out for the camp trunk. And Wolf, that rucksack over there, he'd eat you two for breakfast. Most of the rest just a bunch of lost luggage. Well, now what do? In this place, we wait for our legs. For our pickup. Well, how long? Some cases make bail first night, others do the full stretch. 30 days. But I've got beach things rolled into a mesh bag. Her tankini is still there. I could mildew. So what? A little mildew won't kill you. I'm blind. I was blind once. Won't last. I have sand in my twill. I know. This is not what I thought it would be like at all. You know when you're in the warehouse, you're dreaming about having somebody to carry you? Well, first she removed all of my tags. And it says right there in capitals, do not remove under penalty of law. Poor baby. You fresh from the store? From the catalog! I was ordered! Screw me. She's a virgin. They are. Your first time on a plane? And this bitch, if you'll pardon my German, she lost you? That makes me so mad I could have split a seam. Hell needs a special ring for that kind of behavior. We're gonna take good care of you, kiddo. I'll bet you take good care of her. Hey, stow it, you steroid pump piece of petroleum. Can't you see that the kid is scared? The luggage compartment was bad enough. Oh yeah, I was next to a dog. I flew up from Miami next to a doped up Jack Russell. Not just dated to squirt me though. I hate that. Squirt. Piss is piss. Not the end of the world. You get me? What are you in for, Rolo? My jerk missed his flight. Checks me in at the counter, right? Next thing you know, he's in Boca Raton and yours truly is doing the carousel cha-cha in Newark. Again. I wish he'd just lose me. You don't really mean that. No. Came close once. Hotel lobby, Beijing. Dun, 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 dun. Ni hao! My jerk sets me down and goes out for a smoke. I was trying to be lifted, do a stint for the black market. Wrong. Nobody looks at me twice. Ni hao! Ni hao! I could have been a container. Dun, 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 dun. I could have been a container instead of a bum, which is what I am. Well, la-dee-da. I think you're kind of cute, Rolo. Please, don't melt my heart with that garbage. I'm nobody's treasure chest. You could say that again. What are your initials, kid? PFS. That's so sweet. This guy's full of crap. He's a con man. Hey, whatever you need to believe. Although, if I had that magazine sewn into my lining, well, how did you know that? Man, it's so opaque as we think, my man. Not if you know how to look. It's a trick. Hey, I've done tricks. False bottoms, lead x-ray blocks, not even right. I'm ready to kick off that crap, settle down, and have a few fanny packs with the right girl. At the end of the day, it's who you got loving you. I used to hang out with a weekender bag named Morning. The zipper on him. I could use bumps remembering. Don't you, huh? He would have gone to the ends of the earth for me. He was a genuine article. Leather. They don't make them like that anymore. La-dee-da. Take it easy on the bed. She's on day 29 of the 30-day stretch and run. She's got clearance written all over her leopard print. You're going to sell her? I can't do this. Somebody claim me! Hey, kid. That ain't you. You're just on the warehouse, you dig? You got miles of blue sky up ahead. It's Grace. It's a pickup. How can I help you, sir? Could I see your claim check?
Right this way. Me? It's about damn time! Where have you been? He got picked up out of all of us! Dick! As flies to wanton boys are we to the gods. They use us as their sports status. Isn't that Shakespeare? I hate Shakespeare. Well, now I'll never get home. Nobody will ever claim me. Me and my pig only gets me in more trouble. What do you mean? I see dead baggage. The future, the past, can't help it. Thing is, most people don't want to know. You can tell me my future? You're better off not knowing. See, we're all fine, kid, but one way or another, we land. So my realtor's gonna come and get me, right? Yeah. Here, kid, put your strap on my shoulder. Thanks, Rolo. You're gonna be okay, kid. All of us lost chickens. One way or another, we're all going home.
Thank you, Marissa. Our next speaker is Senior Captain Euchariah Tocco in drama.
Euchariah's favorite part of speech is the warm-ups. Ladies and gentlemen, Euchariah Tocco.
You get used to the sound of the wind as it rushes past your face, and that imminent sense of velocity starts to become familiar after a while. And you see these stars whizzing by you like floating candles, and you can hear the planets singing their songs. And you say to yourself, at any moment, I'm going to come crashing down into the earth. But you don't. At least not yet. And you start to think about things like gravity. You become obsessed with it until you get used to the fact that your feet aren't touching the ground anymore. In fact, ground becomes a concept that no longer really has any meaning to you. And you start to tell yourself things like, if I'm speaking and if people can hear me, well then I must be alive. So you yell, I'm alive, I am alive, to absolutely no one in particular. And you find things out about yourself, like you don't like to look down, you would prefer to look up for obvious reasons. And suddenly, and without warning, you have this unbearable urge to cha-cha once more. I was the ballroom dancing champion. This past summer, the Supreme Court essentially legalized gay marriage. The America we live in today is very different from an America just 30 years ago, where gays and lesbians were encouraged to remain closeted. In this case, we see a cha-cha dancer who struggles with his buried identity and finds hope and inspiration in his art form. Falling Man by Wilshire. I became the cha-cha champion of the world on a perfect night in January of 1983. Now before that, I was already famous for my cha-cha, but no one much remembers that now. See, my dancing partner, Svetlana, she defected from the Soviet Union just so she could dance with me. You would have loved Svetlana. She had an accent like Norma Schreiner in Idiot's Delight. all wonderfuls and viris. I'm also very, very crazy about you, she used to say to me. And I look back on it now and I wonder if she really defected from the Soviet Union just to dance with me. Or if she just hitchhiked to Manhattan from Duluth and made the whole thing up. Anyway, on that night we danced at the Cincinnati Hilton Hotel. And the floors were so slick that some of the couples actually slipped, but not Svetlana and I. Our footwork was impeccable. As we dazzled and glided across the floor, well, for a moment I was almost happy. You see, that's what ballroom dancing is. It's about happiness and spirit and just being alive. And that night, in the middle of our climactic, passionate cha-cha embrace, well, I realized up until that point in my life, there wasn't the slightest possibility of me falling. I wouldn't have allowed it. After the performance, Svetlana and I went up to my hotel room and we drank champagne from her silver slipper. And then I convinced her that we should go down to the party. We did. And the waves split before us. And the compliments flowed endlessly along with all of the alcohol. I think that fate has a way of telling you when it's about to act, because on that night, something just didn't seem right with Svetlana on my arm. And that's when I saw this enchanting stranger from across the room. And he wasn't really a stranger. I knew him as Pablo, a Brazilian dancer. And you may find this hard to believe, but at the ripe old age of 22, and in 1983, I was still a virgin. And I walked toward Pablo, feeling a fear that I think can only be felt by 22-year-old virgins who have never fully admitted to themselves that they are homosexual. And their mothers, of course. Forgive me if I'm boring you. If I could, I would dance it for you. I wouldn't trivialize it with words. You see, I am a born entertainer. When I was younger, I would dance West Side Story for my family and friends, but I don't dance much anymore. And that night, I discovered what love was. Love is this secret language that only you and another person understand, and your whole life is geared toward finding that person. And I want us to be like lovers tonight, because I want you, all of you, to understand what it was like for me to dance with a man. I want you to know what it was like for me to fall into his arms, and his smell, and his eyes. You must forgive me. I don't have much time left. But I want you to know this. Pablo died next year. And a few weeks later, Svetlana took me to the clinic to get checked, and I've been falling ever since. And there are others too. Other people falling, and I would like to reach out to them and grab them, and then the people on the ground would look up and see these fabulous falling beings. I think that would be wonderful. But it's very difficult to organize. And I am afraid that you will condemn me for falling that night. That all of this will be in vain, that you will forget that I was the cha-cha champion of the world. So please, please, please remember my cha-cha. Remember my voice. Remember me.
Thanks, Zechariah. Before our final speaker tonight, we'd like to take a minute to recognize our team seniors and their final speech spotlight.
For some of our seniors, they've been a part of the Tiger speech team since they were in 6th grade. For others, they joined the team later. Either way, all of our seniors would have made an impact on the team. So seniors, what you guys are going to do is we have these beautiful flowers right up here on the stage, and each one has your name on it. And so when we call your name, we're going to do a speech kind of clap. And if you guys are unfamiliar with that, it's after we say the full name, we do one single clap. So for example, Maria Estrada, like that. All right, Chano Abader, Tegan Bentz, Andrea Karen, Mercy Condon, Tanner Cowell, Maria Estrada, Samuel Gleason, Michael Gutman, Ayan Nur, Chichi Nwaka, Ashley Shatsko, Cameron Springer, Yukrai Tabaka, Alex Taylor, Janae Wood, and Bethany Zoe. You guys can go back to your seats.
We'd also like to give a special thank you to Dan Smith, Carol Purrington, and Mary Supernaut for their help with tonight's event. Our final speaker tonight is Senior Michael Gutman. Michael will be performing his original oratory. Michael has qualified this speech for an NIETOC speech tournament held in Denver in May. Michael's favorite part of speech is the moments after the last round and the anticipation for finals to be posted. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Gutman.
Last year, in my AP biology class, we learned the scientific names of a variety of species.
And while we could not even pronounce most of them, there was one species we were all well aware of. Homo sapiens were humans. Although most everyone seemed to know the first word, few of us were aware the second word, sapien, meant capable of thinking. And that got me thinking. Are we really thinking? According to Ken Petras of Harvard University, a true critical thinker analyzes assumptions, evaluates evidence, and synthesizes opinions. This complex reasoning process may also be seen as what Greek philosophers once called skeptical argumentation. But now, in the modern world, it appears that we are losing the abilities to think critically. And as a result, the democratic nature of our society is truly in danger. So today, in order to better understand our critical thinking process, we will first analyze the concept of critical thinking, and take a look at the problems and ensuing harms before finally considering how we all can become critically thinking Homo sapiens. Now, in order to understand the concept of critical thinking, we must first look at Bloom's taxonomy, in which Benjamin Bloom organizes this idea into 6 components: knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and finally evaluation. So the first 3 steps indicate that we have probably read the textbook, understood the general ideas, and applied them on an exam. And although this is the common path that so many of us take as students, it is not yet critical thinking. Only when we implement the last 3 of Bloom's components, analysis, synthesis, and finally evaluation, does critical thinking begin to show. So while the concept of critical thinking is quite difficult, the problem we are facing on a regular basis is simple. We just don't think critically. And some of us don't think at all. Judy Madden-Guest, CEO of Continental Incorporated, agrees, pointing out the fact that so many of her employees can memorize and regurgitate information easily. Yet very few are actually able to turn learning into problem solving. Furthermore, the National Center of Education Statistics found in 2014 that only 15% of young adults demonstrated the proficiency to write well-organized essays, and only 6% could make critical judgments of written text. Considering that most of these adults are either in a workforce or about to enter it, these numbers seem quite alarming. However, this problem begins in the education system. A 2014 study led by New York University sociologist Richard R. found that 45% of students made no significant improvement in their critical thinking skills during the first 2 years of college. And even after 4 years, this number was still at 36%. As a result, many of the students graduated without knowing how to sift fact from opinion, make a clear argument, or objectively review emotional testimony and political spin. However, this is nothing to be surprised about, as it seems that many teachers and professors themselves also have struggles with this concept. The same study found that although the overwhelming majority of faculty claimed critical thinking to be a primary objective of their instruction, only a small minority, 19%, could give a clear definition of what critical thinking was. Furthermore, only 9% of the respondents were clearly teaching for critical thinking on a typical day in class. Statistics so staggering illustrate that so many of our educators are ill-equipped to promote critical thinking in the classroom. So as a result of our inability or unwillingness to think critically, we are losing the power to argue and reason, both civilly and intelligently. As Rabbi Shmuel Yankovitz, an acclaimed writer and educator, states, critical thinking and argument skills, the abilities to both generate and critique arguments, are key elements in decision-making. When applied to academic settings, argumentation may promote the long-term understanding and even retention of course content. Now, while the word argument often carries a negative connotation, often associated with yelling in people's minds, it is in fact a direct presentation of critical thinking. Only when both sides understand each other's point of view can critical thinking be fully implemented, allowing us to objectively analyze, evaluate, and fully synthesize a present situation. And this concept can even be applied to marriage. In fact, the Huffington Post of January 21st of 2014 stated divorces were 54% more likely to occur among couples who rarely ever argued than those who had disagreements with each other every so often. So surprisingly, even success in marriage ultimately depends on our ability to analyze and resolve conflicts effectively, which is something I'll definitely consider for the future. I'll just have to get a date first. On the other hand, if we choose to avoid taking the time to analyze and synthesize our thoughts, we do not question ideas that bombard us. Therefore, we often make more political and financial choices and become easily manipulated. When it comes down to commercials promoting a specific product, instead of researching, analyzing, and critically evaluating the presentation, far too many of us jump on the bandwagon or fall for misinformation. For example, the Federal Trade Commission found in 2014 that over half of all weight loss product advertisements contained at least one false claim. Yet we are constantly cajoled into buying them. Heck, they almost convinced me, skinny me, to go on a diet. Furthermore, the Federal Trade Commission also found in 2014 was 50 random charities were selected. And although a total profit of over $1.3 billion was raised over the past 5 years, nearly $1 billion went to the companies themselves, rather than supporting the cause. Now, while I'm certainly not saying that we need to stop giving to charities altogether, but rather we need to think critically and do our research before making decisions. Unfortunately, in the political arena, we are not doing much better. In a democratic society, one of the greatest privileges that people have is to formulate and freely express their opinions. Unlike in my family's homeland, the Soviet Union, where my grandma's cousin, Deutz was arrested and later imprisoned for saying a political joke at a party that somebody interpreted as criticism of the Soviet government. Now, fortunately, we don't have to worry about being arrested. But too often we make our decisions based on politicians' rhetoric and other qualities irrelevant to the issues at stake, allowing our emotions to take over instead of critically evaluating their intentions and views. So we look at the hair of Donald Trump, the boots of Marco Rubio, and the infamous pantsuits of Hillary Clinton. But what's worse is that politicians can exploit our weaknesses and fears to their advantage. As we all know, in 1933, Adolf Hitler became the leader of Germany. His speeches were misleading, but so exhilarating. So many fell into his trap and followed his extremism. In that next decade, millions of people lost their lives in World War II and the Holocaust, including a part of my extended family who vanished without any trace. So clearly, critical thinking is truly critical. Because as Homo sapiens, we must make sure our species survives. Now, when I decided to be an original oratory a few years back, I was excited because I could use my abilities to analyze, to synthesize, and to evaluate information in order to honestly persuade people to do what's right. So as original orators, we must have the first initiative in combating this lack of critical thinking. To start off, we should probably try hard to come up with original topics. But more importantly, analyze ideas around us and ask for justification, even when it seems that proposed solutions are obvious. See, too often we are afraid to be skeptical, and even the word itself carries a negative connotation. We should not be afraid to step out of our comfort zones and pull others out of theirs as well by engaging in meaningful discussions. Now, it definitely will not be easy at first. Personally, I still find it difficult to ask questions and express my opinion in class, because I'm hesitant to be like my mom, who questions everything, all the time. Sorry, Mom. But I guess I probably should too. In fact, Dr. Alan Benson at the Frostburg State University in Maryland promotes critical thinking in his classroom through the use of Socratic seminars, where students collaborate and take part in an intellectual dialogue, facilitated with open-ended questions about a specific topic. By incorporating techniques such as these seminars to take place in a learning environment, we become more open to discussion, and thus begin to think critically. So while I may not have memorized the scientific names of all the species, what I definitely learned was that humans have an incredible ability to analyze, to synthesize, and to evaluate information. And we need to embrace these thinking skills. Instead of being hesitant to express an opinion in class, we need to feel empowered in knowing that everyone is thinking differently and individually. In the words of Carl Sagan, a well-known American astrophysicist, the true democratic application of skepticism is one that everyone has the essential tools to effectively construct and evaluate claims of knowledge. So let's all go ahead, be skeptical, and use our critical thinking power as a true Homo sapien.
From there, we prepare our tournaments at Egan and SMSU, plus our playoff tournaments. NSDA National Qualifiers, the Big South Conference Tournament, and the Section 2 AA State Qualifying Tournament.
And that concludes tonight's showcase event, Speech Spotlight. We hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you for coming tonight and supporting Tiger Speech and the fine arts in our area. Good night.